Since the pay is not necessarily there, and I like what you said, and it sounds like you guys are just aware that the teachers do want to be recognized and rewarded. And I have a lot of friends and family members that are teachers, and I think that is true. So I guess what positive things do you think need to be implemented, since the pay is not there and they're not receiving that during these hard times? Then what are some of the things that could be implemented, or have you guys thought of any of those just to make it a more positive environment?
A couple of things, I guess. We have been able, and I think a lot of people are kind of skeptical of this because of all the confusion out there about the amount of resources the district actually does have. But one of the items on the table is a 1% pay increase and 1% retention bonus. And 1% is really not a lot, and we recognize that. It's, you know, it is the best we can do right now. And it sounds kind of bad, but we wanted to try to say, all right, we understand you've been hanging on with us, you've been right there with us. We want to try to do this little thing for you. We want it to be better in the future, but for now, this is what we can try to do for you. Please accept this. So that's kind of foremost. And we hope that the negotiating teams can agree that that's something we want to press forward with. And I think there's a number of other things. We have events like the Apple Awards. The staff and the board tried to take a more active role in that this year to say, all right, at the school level, you guys know who's who and who you want to put forward as your award winners. So my understanding is there are thousands of nominees this year. It was amazing. And I really am excited about hearing stories like that at the local level because I think there's so many deserving individuals at the school level that should be recognized. And so that flowed upward throughout the district. I think involving people more and saying not only do we recognize the job that you're doing here in the classroom, but we also want your participation at a broader, greater level. We care about your voice, and we're not just going to stand here and tell you we care about your voice, but we're going to integrate you into more opportunities throughout the district to have your voices heard. Our district accountability committee is working to try to do that with the SACs and with the parents. How can we create more meaningful community engagement and get additional ideas on how we can recognize teachers and staff? I think there's a number of different ways, and I realize I'm kind of taking up more time here, but I'd be happy to speak with you also individually about more things that we're doing. And some of these things are just standing up, but again, I am working with Human Resources, and they understand a little bit better than I do, perhaps, how to motivate groups of educators. So
pushing decisions down to the schools as much as possible. I just don't think it works to have, this 7-member board and the superintendent's cabinet sitting around making all the decisions or making detailed decisions, making decisions they don't need to make, making decisions that are best made at the school. I think that it's got to have some positive effect along with pushing as much money as possible. And one thing the superintendent has done that has, in my mind, been just spectacular is she's cut millions out of the central administration's budget. And that money hasn't been kept there, that money has been pushed down to the schools. I think that's got to have some positive effect if you feel like you have some control over your destiny versus having these 7 people, some of whom you may never have met before, but certainly read about and making decisions. You get to make the decisions. We'll set some broad policy, but then you go and you do what you need to do. That's what we tried to do a couple of years ago when we started letting schools keep their carryover. And that's part of the surplus, frankly, that's been a bit at issue. We told schools if you get a budget and you don't spend all of that money, you get to keep it, as opposed to the way typically how government works. And I spent a career in government before I left a few years ago. That money was sucked back, so this desire was always to spend this money at the end of the fiscal year. That's not the case here. You get to keep it. If you can save the money and you want to do a chemistry lab or you want to do anything at all with that money, you can do it. And we're not going to take that money. That's another area where there may be some disagreement, but I think the board is united on this. If the schools have saved money, they get to keep it and they get to use it for what they want to use it for.
We have a couple of other questions that are, again, along the same vein. Why are individual board members' political beliefs published in the paper? The past school boards were non-partisan. Why did you break the precedent and endorse the Republican Party candidates?
You know, I've spent more time answering questions in my official role than I spend actually making the decision. And what we're talking about, I'm quite certain, is the Mitt Romney endorsement. And I spent more time talking about it at official engagements than I spent zero time, official time, making the decision. A bunch of reasons. One, I come from a background in politics. I happen to know the Romney people, they're friends. It's kind of funny how this started. They just called up and said, "Hey, who are you for?" And I said, "Well, I guess I'll be, you guys are friends for Mitt Romney." And they said, "Great, do you mind if we list your name publicly?" And I said, "Well, sure." I think some of the other board members were politically engaged as well, and they came up with 7 and they issued a press release. We knew it was coming, but it wasn't a coordinated effort by the board. Certainly there was no district time spent on it. I was familiar with previous boards. They were political. It's not accurate to say that they weren't. I knew previous board members. I ran against one, and they were political. For some reason, I actually was surprised the newspaper actually ran with it, because I didn't think that our 7 members of a board in Douglas County saying we're all supporting Mitt Romney meant anything. But what I would just tell you is, we were political people. I was anyway involved in politics before I worked for Wayne Allard, and then I worked for Bill Owens. Wayne Allard for 10 years, Bill Owens for 8 or 7. I made the decisions I typically would have made it whether I was on the board or not. They kind of called and said, "We can list your name." I said, "Yeah." And we ended up in the newspaper, which I think surprised all of us.
Well, when they approached me, they said, "Would you be willing to endorse Mitt Romney?" I said, "Well, I got a lot of problems with Mitt Romney, but I do like his education background. I'd be willing to endorse that." And so imagine my surprise when I was being portrayed as endorsing Romney candidate as opposed to Romney the educational policies. And if anybody wants to talk about what I like about Romney's educational policies, I'll be happy to do that. But
I'll also be willing to tell you what she doesn't like about the other parts of Mitt Romney.
Well, I would be curious what you know, because I work in politics and on the national level, and I don't know. He hasn't released his official education.
Well, and I had to,
so
right.
I'm curious what led you to endorse him before he's even released his platform. So if he comes out with something that you're against, would you consider pulling your endorsement, or how do you make those decisions?
And I don't want to have too political a conversation, but this is the second time he's ran, and he's got also an extensive record as governor of Massachusetts. What frankly, a lot of detail, I think, from a fellow running for president and what they want to do for education isn't actually a great thing, because I think that educational decisions are best made at the local level. And I think that his desire to strengthen local school boards and strengthen states to some degree, though frankly what I see coming out of the state level doesn't always please me either, because I think we make our best decisions here. What I like is that he's a federalist. He believes that certain decisions are best made at the local level, and I wasn't exclusively education. I supported him 4 years ago as well. But that was sort of, when you asked me about Mitt Romney and education, that's sort of my impression.
The U.S. Department of Education oversees the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, so his administration will be administering a huge program, and so.
That is correct.
Obviously, he will have it.
Now he won't have a large role in Douglas County, because one of my gripes is, as we are at the county level, we also are at the state level, and that impacts the county, is we are, and I'm okay, and again, I don't want to get too much into federalism here, but we're one country. I ran the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment in the last term of the Owens administration. And I'm perfectly happy that my dollars, my Douglas County tax dollars, go to paying for immunizations for poor kids in Denver. I'm okay with that. On some of the education front, I think though the formulas they have for returning funding, particularly to districts that they consider rich, are poor, are a disservice to our kids. When you have a good performing school district, you should be funding it so it maintains that performance level, and that's not the way either at the state or the federal level that funding formulas for education work. And at the end of the day, if we want to have our tax dollars returned to in some rational proportion to our kids, we're going to have a poor performing school district. Then they'll all show up with the money and say, here's the money. I'd like to find a happy medium where we can be a well-performing district and have some of the tax dollars that we send to DC, not all of them, or Denver for that matter, return to our county so we can continue to do good things. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on, but that's kind of mine.
I want to get to a couple questions we have about class size. Just one, class sizes in the primary grades are unacceptable. What are you planning to do to lower them? I think that's the gist of the other questions.
And class size being, the 30.
Right. Right, I think the newest proposal, budget proposal, I don't know if you've all seen it, it's available on the district website. And if someone has a question about how to find that or any questions about it, then I'll be happy to work with you to get those answered. We actually are hoping to increase elementary spending by $50 a student. And so we're hoping that that sort of thing can effectively push the class sizes downward a little bit. And again, we don't want to make decisions for any principals. We don't want to make any decisions for any schools. But we're hoping, I'm sorry, is there
That's rhetoric going around in circles about budget being the direction. It just doesn't sound like an answer to your question.
Well, I think the answer Megan was trying to get, well, I'm not going to tell Megan what she was trying to say. The answer to the question is we're going to give the schools a budget, and then they're going to make determinations about how that's going to be spent. That may not be the answer that you want to hear, but how are your budgets working right now?
Well, we just had a discussion as our staff before you guys came in, a short meeting, was talking about the updated budgets that were just transferred into our SBB. Our SBB is our site-based budget, and we're allocated so much funding per student. And as you mentioned, that the proposal was originally a $50 cut for elementary school per student to a zero amount, and then a one-time amount of additional $50 per kid. And so when we talk about class sizes, and yes, this is the highest we have ever been at Iron Horse and across the district. We talk a lot of parents will ask about, is there a cap to class sizes? There's no real true cap. There is something in the teacher contract. If you get to a certain number, you are allocated additional educational assistance support. But one thing, we look at when they kind of look at funding, we were talking again just a bit ago about in the K2 classes, it could be 32 to 1. And again, that's kind of how they look at when they're funding you. And in the intermediate grades 3 through 6, which are 3rd through 5th grade, is 36 to 1. And as we, 35, thank you, thank you, 35 to 1. And again, that number has increased over the years. But when we are looking at our class sizes for next year, specifically Iron Horse, as you keep referring to, it's a site-based decision, which I appreciate. We have some control over our dollars, is we're keeping those numbers well below that. And actually, we have no class at this time that next year will be above 30. We have a couple at 30 currently this year, but we are looking at, like I said, keeping those class sizes down. Again, while they're higher than the past, because again, when you consider additional money's coming in this year, this is after several years of cuts to our SBB, our site-based budgets. But again, we're able to keep those class sizes down, while not ideal, into a more manageable number. Yes.
Mr. Getchell, I'm sorry. My understanding, though, is that with the elementary money, is that it's just maintaining what we already are at. We are not diminishing class sizes by any means at the elementary level. That's happening at the high school level and at the middle school level, because the monies that you put back into the high school and the middle school, correct? Is that correct?
And scheduling changes. Scheduling changes is also
Right.
the other thing
Okay.
that they've been able to do. And without
Correct.
the scheduling changes, they would not be in that position.
What
But
should
here we
do?
have primary and elementary kids who are not independent learners and thinkers versus middle school and high school. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have lower class sizes too, but I have a second grader at Iron Horse right now, and thankfully her teacher is fabulous and she's flourishing this year, but she's also among 29 other students. She's in a class of 30 kids. That is not.
What, give me some suggestions then,
Well, I mean,
we agree with you.
I guess you're
you
saying,
know.
you're putting out to the public that you're helping the lower class sizes, but you're really
I
not. They're staying the same.
I want to be
It
totally
depends on the
clear.
school though. so.
Nobody
But
is
that's
trying
crap.
to.
You can't just say the schools, you're just giving certain amounts of money to each school and say, okay, go do what you can do. That's not gonna work. They don't get enough
What do you
money.
recommend? What do you want to, I can't print money, so what should I do?
I mean, nobody wants to blow sunshine that somehow everything's fabulous because we're able to return some of this money. I mean, nobody is sitting up here saying, you guys should be happy with, that's not, we're under no illusions that this is not a great situation. None of this is ideal. So please understand that when we try to tell you this is what's being put forward, this is not meant to be some kind of, oh, well, now that you have this, everything's good.
We have to make the best decisions possible. I mean, we can't just say, this is bad. We have to make decisions, and these are the ones we think are the best. If there's an alternative solution, we're open to it. I mean, there's no, this is the best way to go. If you have a suggestion, please.
I'm not looking at the whole district and all the things that are out there. There are things, there's always priorities to make. Do you need to have 6 different languages at a school at the high school level? Not as important as having kids learning effectively at the beginning grades. There's, I don't know what you're looking at. Well, I know they have
But
to,
that's the
but
thing is, I mean, it would be interesting somehow if we could show you what we're looking at, because maybe you would, and by the way, I'm not vested in, I think we've made the best solutions, but they're not sort of personal to me. I'm happy to change my mind pretty quick. But, you're saying we have looked at it, we've spent a lot of time with it. I wish we could, I mean, it would be interesting really to, and the books are open, but you can't have, 50,000 people, sitting in a room looking at the books. We've looked at it, we think we've done the best we can, but we're open to suggestions. If you've got one, if principals have one, come to us.
I have a suggestion. If you saw the student achievement we dropping and you could correlate it to certain class sizes with the district, then begin to prioritize class size. I mean, I get it. I know budgets are tight, resources are restrained. Nobody, as you said, is in an ideal situation right now. It is what it is.
Right.
But we also are very concerned about student achievement, of course, as a district. And so if it became a situation, and I know that more and more every year we have the data tools to be able to actually track students to specific teachers and measure student growth. And if we saw that student growth was diminishing for kids who were in those larger class sizes with the school board, then step in and say, you know what, maybe we do need to prioritize class size and prioritize learning for lower classes.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think, are you talking correlation or causation? You know what I mean? It would, like, you would somehow be able to prove that a rising class size causes lower student achievement as opposed to just
Well,
having a
across the
correlation.
district, I think you could, because if you saw that these were typically high-performing teachers, and they had a tremendous jump, as in the second grade class that we're all referring to, that we all have students in, if that particular group of students didn't do as well this year, didn't make the growth, and you could see that happening at different elementary schools across the district, I think you could, I mean, of course, we wouldn't have time to hire a researcher, but I think you could come to the conclusion.
You can look at
that-
it
Hypothetically, I get your question. Your question is,
We're
if
worried about
increasing
student
class
achievement.
size, if we knew increasing class size was harming student performance, would we want to do something? The question that I think I'll answer for me, but I think for everybody is yes. But then the question is still remains the same one, because the solution is money. So we're going to have to find money from somewhere in order to address that. I think class size is something we would like to address. I think it would be a top priority for us, but where do we go to get that money to keep class sizes smaller? And that's the problem that we have.
Well, and the suggestion, I think, is that we don't prioritize class sizes. So I'd be interested to see, what do folks think we prioritize over class sizes, and what do, there's an assumption in that question.
And are you comfortable with us telling your principal that that's a priority instead of something he's decided with the SAC? Because that's basically what we would be doing. We'd be saying, you got it wrong. We think you need to spend it this way. And yeah, with compelling evidence, would I be willing to do that? Yeah, but I'm slightly nervous about making that decision, standing in his shoes and making that decision, because I don't think you want me to, by the way. So the answer, I think, is yes, but where are we going to get the money? Yes, but are you comfortable with the school board doing that? Sorry, you've been very patient.
Yeah,
sorry.
thank you. No, I just have a lot of friends that have students in charter schools, and I know they do have low class sizes. So I guess my question is, how do they get low class sizes and we don't?
They have caps
They
on
have
enrollment.
caps. Okay, and I don't know how it works.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And by the way, I'll just say this because it's fair disclosure. My kid's in the charter, Platte River Academy over in Unite. It was a decision that worked best for us. Caps on enrollment. I think that's probably the big driver. Now, having said that, they also pay for their own capital. There's a lot of other things that go along with that, but that's one of the benefits. One of the downsides is financially they're always living a bit hand to mouth.
Another question came up. Iron Horse has invited school board members to come and visit and shadow a couple of teachers and see firsthand what it would be like to plan, teach, and counsel classrooms with 30-plus kiddos. So far, there has not been a response. Is there a chance of this happening?
Yes, I came here tonight planning to talk to your principal about that. I actually received an invitation in February, and the dates proposed did not work for me. But I'm hoping that between now and the end of the school year that I'll be able to do that, because I've done that at Chaparral, and it was amazing. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to do that. I think some names were put forward, and we can discuss whether those would be the best names or not. But yes, there's absolutely a chance of doing that. I'm really excited about doing that. So I hope that was adequate enough.
And I just want to get back to everything you just go back to, there's no money for this, no money for that. But when it was put up to a vote by the county during the election, or during voting last year, it was run on the platform of vouchers, when vouchers was not a popular thing with the district.
I don't think it was run on the platform of vouchers. I think it was run. If you want to see some of the mailers, I can show them to you. I had some role in that. The mailers basically said, one, we have a good product, let's continue to buy in this. I mean, we did a lot of polling on this before we went. And the polling wasn't to tell us whether we should go. The polling was to tell us what are people looking for. What do people want to hear? What's the message? One, education is popular. People like education. People like teachers. And so we ran a race on a few things. One, we got great teachers, let's keep them here. And I'll show you the mailers that said these things. Two, we have a great school system, let's maintain it. And so that was how we ran the race. And vouchers were actually, and we talked, I'll tell you, I talked about it, about whether we want something we wanted to talk about. At the end of the day, we decided, you know what, there are so many uniting themes. Vouchers are, some people love them, some people hate them. But there were a few uniting themes in an election that we felt were going to be winners, and it was going to be one, let's keep what we have, and two, let's pay those really good teachers the money that they deserve to stay in the county.
We have a question actually along that line. It said that do you think it's a mistake to be making these decisions around the voucher program at the same time that you had proposed the bond?
Exactly.
Did it confuse?
Because it made people feel like you have enough, and they said we have enough money to fight this battle.
My name is Lydia, and I'm a teacher here for 7 years, and grad PE teacher. And I also have a son in 4th grade at another school, and they're 4-year-olds who will through Douglas County. I volunteer on several committees here, but I'm also on the PTO at another school in the district and volunteer on their staff as well. So pretty involved as a voting member over there. So I think I have different circles. I have teacher friends. I have another school's, you know, the staff there and the parents there. But I live in Stonegate, and there's a lot of people who live on my block who are retired or their children are out of school. So what I think is interesting when the bond came up, that certain people will go after information that they want. If you're against it, you're going to look for something to support that, and if you're for it, so be it. But I felt like I was pretty informed being involved. However, I don't think the majority of people who didn't have children that were in Douglas County were informed. And they would say comments like just casually at the park. So Douglas County wants all this money, right, to keep this level of achievement. However, there's talk of vouchers. And there's talk of maybe we need to pay for the teachers that are doing a really good job. Is there something going on here that we don't know about? Are there a lot of poor performing teachers? Should people be taking their children out of Douglas County schools and getting all these vouchers? And so I'm curious, what responsibility does the board feel have, or feel any at all, in regards to the bond not passing? Did you personally support it? Do you feel like you spoke out enough for it? So I wanted to just kind of clarify that question. And then my second question, I'm just curious, is I unfortunately am busy as a mom and a teacher and a wife, and I'm not fully up to speed on your background. And so I'm curious on why you wanted to be a board member and what your background is in education. And I know I just asked a lot.
So, start with the first one, and then I'll work back to the second. I voted for the bonding bill, both times as a board member and on the ballot. It's interesting, we can talk about anecdotally about how what people told us. I had a lot of people who weren't Republicans telling me, well, we think what you guys are doing with respect to making more choices available to parents is great, so we're going to support it. Anecdotally, we could probably trade a lot of stories, and I don't know where that cuts down. What I can tell you is that, you know, there was a plan. You know, I was critical. I voted for the last one too, by the way. The last, let's call it, we call it mill and bonds. I mean, it's a tax increase, and you know, I'm comfortable saying I voted for a tax increase. I'm probably comfortable because I'm never running for another office after this one. But I mean, you know, voting for that didn't bother me. We had a plan. In 2008, they didn't. Now, in retrospect, you know, the plan didn't work. I don't feel personally responsible that it lost. We don't have the money to go back and do what I'd like to do, which is figure out exactly why it lost. My guess is that two things. There was a couple things happening. Well, one thing happened in 2008. The economy just crashed about the time people were. I mean, you know, beginning of September, things were going bad. Ballots were hitting in the beginning of October. I mean, it was horrible. I mean, you all remember it. I remember I was practicing law at the time. You're standing in the break room staring at the TV as you're watching your wealth, you know, fade away. And so I get that. I think it probably would have lost anyway, frankly, because I think the district has gotten past the point where we can put tax increases on the ballot and just assume people are going to vote for them. I think you have to do some work to get people to vote yes on a tax increase. So we approached it this time, you know, let's get some polling done. We raised money from outside sources on our own time, not the district time. Raised some money, did some polling, figured out what we wanted to do. First, we knew what we wanted to do. Polling doesn't dictate what we do. We knew what we wanted to do. We polled it. It looked pretty good. We identified in any race, you know, there's going to be a big chunk that are always going to vote no, and there's a big chunk that's always going to go yes. And with respect to to a tax increase in Douglas County, and I was told not to call it a tax increase, I was called to talk in the mill, but election's over, so you know, tax increase. There appeared to be about I don't know, about 44 a tax increase, a little over 40 against, and then the small group of people in the middle that, okay, we know, we can figure out who they are. We can mail them, we can talk to them, we can tell them why this is important, we can get it done. And we did all of those things, and we had a plan and it failed. And I'm not happy, I don't feel good about it, I feel bad about it. But what I can tell you is we made the effort and we lost. So this is why we're at where we're at right now. And you know, with respect to my background, I'm not a teacher. I don't have any master's in education. My background in education is, we'll call it 5 years as an undergrad. And I have a master's from Johns Hopkins and a law degree. I have a lot of education, but it's on the end of you teaching me, not me teaching anybody else. I got a couple of girls. They're very cute. They're very nice. Now I'm going to be in Douglas County for a while. I thought it was a good thing to do. I have one in first grade. She enjoys first grade. She's doing well, but it's nice to see sometimes. You know, it's real interesting. We're all parents here. It's nice to see her struggle, and it's nice to see her succeed. And she's succeeding well, but sometimes it's a struggle. So anyway, that's the answer.
And Megan, what's your background?
I went to CU at Boulder, and I have a BS in aerospace engineering and BA in political science. Did graduate work in public administration. I did spend some time at CU. I don't want to get anybody get the wrong idea that I'm comparing myself to a teacher, but I did spend time with instruction for supplemental programs for freshmen and sophomores in engineering classes. So that's my very limited experience teaching anybody anything. So I worked for the Department of Defense as an engineer, and I've been doing that. I do that here, just over the border in Jefferson County at the Lockheed Martin facility. When Doug said we're all parents, I am not a parent. I am the lone representative on the board of that 70% that have no children in the district. And there are a number of reasons I ran for the board, but I think one of the things I wanted to do, I was not very happy in the 2008 election because the whole time, I moved to Douglas County in 2006. And my husband and I occupied that house for 2 years before I received any information whatsoever from the school district. And it was a tiny postcard that said mini annual report, and the print was like this big. And I thought, what is this supposed to tell me? Why should I care about this? I care about schools, and I want them to do well, but I don't see on this postcard how that translates. So I thought, oh wow, this school district, by everything that's said on this postcard, is a great school district. They should do a better job at putting that out there. And obviously we can have a lot of conversations about how that went ultimately. I think Doug's correct about a lot of the tax type stuff. I voted no, and everybody knows that probably, everybody as public record. I voted no because I felt like not only were we, we talked about this a little bit earlier, some information that's kind of out there that I thought, I don't have a handle on this. I need to tell people why we're great. And I feel like that's not, some of these efforts, I don't know enough to change the tone to be successful at that. And also, pay for performance. There's a lot of people with questions about pay for performance, and not just teachers, and not just folks here in this type of room, but community members. Well, if you're selling me on a tax increase to pay for performance pay, what does that look like? And we hadn't even got done designing it. And I thought, well, how can I go out to the public and say, this is a worthwhile thing, this is going to work for you, when we can't give them any details. I thought that's not, I can't stand in front of people and say that I've done that. And I have great respect for the rest of the board the board members that did vote on it. I have nothing, against that by any means. They all had their own reasons. But that was my reason for not voting for it. I never campaigned against it. I never stood out there and said, you need to vote no. I never would do that. I did give people facts, and I said, if you do not vote for it, be prepared. And some people chose to, and some people chose not to. So, that's kind of the story with me. I wish that things had turned out differently. I didn't want to be on the majority side, I suppose, of that. But that's kind of the way it ended up working out. So I think, and I think the voucher thing is like a separate debate. I'd be happy to talk to anybody about that and my feelings about that. But I don't think that was really, for some people, I think that might have been a big considering factor. But people tend to, especially the folks that don't have children in the school district, have a tendency to turn inward and vote for their own circumstance and their own interest, and they fail to understand how that translates